This lovely old stone building located in downtown Wichita, Kansas, was formerly Wichita's City Hall. It is now the home of the Wichita-Sedgwick County Historical Museum. I am Bob Guenthner, and in June of this year, 2020, the Historical Museum opened an exhibition of 45 of my pedal cars. In this video, I'm going to take you on a walkthrough tour of the exhibition. As you enter the museum, you head past the main desk toward the elevator. You take the elevator to the 4th floor for the exhibition. As the elevator doors open, you exit into the 4th floor lobby where you see the introductory display. It features a 1941 Steelcraft Junior service truck towing a 1929 Sidway top lift Rio. Behind the two cars on the wall is on the left, the feature name of the exhibition, Pedal to the Metal, and on the right, blowing up pictures of a number of museum members with their pedal cars. The one top left is me at a very early age riding a neighbor's pedal car. Down from that on the right is me just a few years ago after I had acquired the Pioneer Flyer locomotive. You'll be seeing more of that in the video a little bit later. The others are pictures of other museum members and their pedal cars at a young age. From there, you enter into the Slauson Gallery, which is a very nice large room which shows the pedal cars to great advantage. The display along the outer wall is arranged so that you start with cars from the 1920s, and as you walk around, you move to the final car, the Mustang from the mid-1960s. As you will see, the museum has found pictures of the same cars, real cars of the same era, and has posted pictures of them with the pedal cars. The first one is a 1929 Marmon made by Gendron. There's a rare car, all original, never touched. Still has the original decal on the hood, original hood ornament, radiator badge, and license plate. Beside it is a Dodge Brothers car from about 1929. It was made by the Murray, Ohio Manufacturing Company and sold under the Steelcraft brand. Although I'm not particularly a fan of open-wheel cars without fenders, this one I fell in love with. It is a 1926 Case made by American National Company, all original except for the toolbox that was missing and that I added. It still has its original radiator badge and license plate as well as its lights. Next comes a 1927 American National dump truck. Although it's not possible for me to show you, it has one of the most amazing dashboards of any pedal car in my collection. From there, we move into the 1930s with the 1931 Gendron Packard. Although it was still sold and made in the early 30s, it retains a lot of the upright, boxy style of the 1920s cars. As a luxury car, it has a nice dashboard, spotlight on the running board, Uga horn, and has 6 wheels with wheels on both running boards. Pedal cars from the mid-1930s show a transition from the boxier style toward a sleeker style with this Steelcraft Plymouth made in 1935 It is often referred to as a Pierce Arrow car because the headlights are not on the sides of the hood but are on the fenders. From that same era is a 1935 Steelcraft Buick. Has the scooped grille, spotlight on the running board. It also has a luggage rack on the back for a trunk. As we move into the late 1930s, we see a sleeker design in this Steelcraft M10 Dodge, and also in this 1939 Steelcraft Dodge. Not to be overlooked, though, is the Tandem, built in 1934-1935 by American National. This car was actually found on an amusement ride and restored from there. Mid-1930s, of course, could not overlook the Chrysler Airflows. This is a crude design by Garton in 1934. Beside it is a more realistic Steelcraft Airflow. And finally, the fanciest Airflow of all is a Toledo made in 1936. One of the fanciest Art Deco cars is the Steelcraft Auburn Supercharger made in 1938. Also made in the late 30s were the Zephyr cars, copying cars that Ford had made. On the right, a fairly realistic Mercury Zephyr. On the left, a Zephyr made by the Garton Toy Company that really accentuates the huge balloon fenders and the very sharp nose. Also made in the late 1930s was this Gendron Graham, usually referred to as a shark-nosed Graham because of the way its hood is shaped, where it slopes to the back at the bottom, just like a shark's nose. Also featured from the late 1930s is this Oldsmobile made by Steelcraft. In 1941, with war brewing in Europe, but before Pearl Harbor and before the United States had entered World War II, Murray, Ohio company under the Steelcraft brand, made this Army field ambulance. It continued to produce it after the war for a few years. Also produced by Steelcraft in 1941 and continued for a few years after the war is this Chrysler, 1941 Chrysler design that is very popular among collectors. The late 1940s brought in the Woody station wagon. This is one made by Garton about 1949. Also originated in the late 1940s and continuing into the 1950s is this race car made by first BMC and then by AMF that really represented the dirt track race cars in the late 40s and early 50s. In the early 1950s, one of the most popular pedal cars was the Garton Cadillac, obviously based on the Cadillac. The green paint was typical of the 1950s. Also from the 1950s is this AMF Capri. It is unique in that it had shiftable gears. There were two separate chains, two separate size sprockets on the rear axle where the child could actually shift gears. It also featured a horn and working headlights. From the late 1950s is this AMF DPW, Department of Public Works dump truck with a dump bed that actually could be operated by the driver. The final pedal car in the historic series is this mid-1960s Mustang. It was originally sold by Ford dealers along with the introductory sales of the Mustang automobile. but it was so popular, it continued into the early 1970s. There are 3 of the pedal cars that have their special exhibit because of their significance. This is a 1934-1935 AMF 5-in-1 convertible truck. It, with its various accessories, could be converted by the child from a dump truck to an ice truck to a fire truck to a wrecker and ultimately to a field ambulance, U.S. Army field ambulance. Above the display is shown a blown-up catalog page that demonstrates the different ways that the truck could be configured. Also given its own separate display is his 1927 Alamite Packard 6. The reason it's called Alamite is because American National teamed up with Alamite to produce a special car where the child actually was furnished with a grease gun in the toolbox, a small can of Alamite lubricant, and there were special fittings on the axles so the child could lubricate his own car. These are the tools that were in the toolbox. Also displayed above the car is this enlarged catalog page showing the various things that came with it, including a small bottle of 3-in-1 oil. This Alamite can is a later can, not the one that originally came with the car. Displayed with the car is a copy of a magazine article with a picture showing the original owner of the car being driven around the early 30s. It also is a story of how Ron Doan, also known as Crooked Herman, was able to purchase the car from the original owner. I then bought it at a Ron Doan auction and am the 3rd owner. The 3rd car to get special attention in the exhibit is this 1927 American National that has shaft drive and is shiftable between a high speed and a low speed. Both this car and the Packard have special wind-up mechanisms on the dash that, when wound and then turned on by a lever under the dash, make a motor noise. Again, an enlarged catalog page shows how the shift mechanism and the shaft drive works. There is also a special area in the display showing that not all pedal cars were either cars or trucks. Features planes, a 1932 airmail plane from the era when airmail was carried by the United States Air Force, Army Air Force. Also a 1941 Army pursuit plane was very popular before and for a while after the war. There is a boat from the 1960s that is also very popular with collectors. The motor has battery mechanism in it so that the lever will actually make the propeller go around. Beside it is a 1960s Casey Jones locomotive. And in the front of the display is the Pioneer Flyer, made originally in 1928. This one was made in 1932. From an early age, I have been fascinated by fire trucks. In fact, I have a picture of me at about age 5 or 6 riding on a carousel ride at amusement park Kiddieland here in Wichita in a fire truck like this Gendron hose cart. The next Christmas after that picture was taken, I received a Murray Pontiac fire truck just like this one as my main Christmas present. And you can say that my fascination with fire trucks has continued. This is a very rare 1924 American National boiler truck. The boiler has a steam gauge, a water gauge, and a door at the bottom that opens so that the child could pretend to stoke the fire. Beside it is a 1935 American National fire truck, hose reel truck that is one of the largest fire trucks ever made. The display also includes a Steelcraft Mack fire truck from the 1930s, a Murray Champion fire truck from the early 1950s, a Garton fire truck from 1949, an AMF fire truck from the mid-1950s at the era when we were experimenting with fire trucks that were not always red, and a 1929 Steelcraft Fire Chief car. I hope you have enjoyed the walkthrough, as through it you've been able to see the evolution of the pedal car from the mid-1920s to the mid-1960s. If you have the chance, I hope you will visit. It will be on display here through June of 2021 at the Wichita-Sedgwick County Historical Museum, located in downtown Wichita, Kansas.